Hello and welcome to Living the Tao.
Hello, I'm Taoist Master Mikel Steenrod.
And I'm Morgan. Thank you for joining us on this walk. Today we'll be discussing Taoist meditation. What is it and what are the benefits, first of all? So just simply put,
it's an entire field of practice. So,
well, what if I ask you, what is it and what are the benefits? What would you tell me?
Well, first of all, I would say that if you want the explanation I typically give about what makes meditation is whenever you have the mind acting on the mind, you have a meditative art.
The mind acting on the mind, what does that mean?
Well, when the mind is attempting to directly work upon the mind rather than allowing the environment to work upon the mind, then you're fitting into the boundaries of that discipline. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty broad definition.
Does that mean that the implication is that our mind doesn't normally control our own mind?
Most people don't direct a significant portion of their mental activity towards developing, regulating their mental activity, or even being aware of their own mental activity. So, for example, sometimes meditations can simply be as simple as paying attention as to what's going on in your mind. And so that's called, what's the typical common term for it? It escapes me right now, but that's one standard practice for people, is where they simply get awareness of their own process. And so that would fit into meditation.
Okay.
Meditation can also be the adjustment of those processes. It can be tracking the senses. It can be delving into the deep inner reaches of your self.
Wow. Okay.
It can be unwinding yourself, so moving towards the Hundan, and then ultimately Pu. And so those are stages of non-differentiation. So those all fit within the general boundaries of meditation. Within Taoism, depending on the sect, you also have what's generally called mind training. And that's basically both exploring the internal world and building it deliberately, because you're training that mind.
Oh, okay. So not just observing, but actually getting in there and building stuff.
Yeah, and those all fit within the meditative discipline. So that's why when you're asking, well, what is meditation? It's like asking, well, what is biology or what is physics? It's a huge collection of disciplines that kind of have the mind acting on the mind as a unifying principle.
Okay. So to the second part of my question, why is that important? Why is it important or powerful or even interesting to explore or to exert your mind, which we'll get into the definition of that in a minute, on your mind?
Well, it gives you control of yourself. So it allows you, as the reality is that if you don't exert control of yourself, the environment is exerting control of yourself. And by that I don't mean the natural world, although that can be a reference and has been classically. I'm referring to society, and then if we draw the camera back another stage, the social mind. So
just anything you encounter.
Right. And so your concept of reality is imposed upon you, and your ability to resist that increases with you spending time gaining control over your own mind. However, initially that's almost always for social ends and not really for your own personal ends independent of definitions of society. So a person has to pass through a journey in order to get to a point where they have high ownership of the self.
So I got a little bit confused there. You're saying that initially, even meditation is a social enterprise.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Why would my own control of my own self be to serve the outside world?
Let's say you don't know how to drive.
Okay.
And you learn to drive a truck.
Okay.
You can steer that truck anywhere you want. But initially what happens is that you're going to be handed a map and or you're going to run errands with it. You're not going to go out to do something that you've never conceived of with a truck.
Oh, like completely novel or for myself, just
right.
Because I'm not familiar with driving a truck yet?
Well, I mean, you have control of the truck, you have a map that you've been handed.
Oh, see, the map has been handed to me. I see.
And then you're going to drive along on that map to get from point A to point B. Or you're going to go out to fulfill errands, and the errands were largely handed to you at some point as well. So you, in theory, have control of all those things, but do you?
Yes.
So in a different time or a different society, you would be handed a different map to drive.
Yep, I see.
And you would have different errands. Would there be commonalities? Yeah, that's actually one of the core points or arguments with regards to social mind. While it's a distortion, if it were completely alien to human existence, we would just die. So there has to be some overlap with reality. So,
well, yeah, that's a different talk.
yeah.
So is it beneficial, why is it beneficial to learn to drive the truck if initially you're just an employee of the social mind?
It may not be.
Oh.
I mean, that's the reality of Taoism. It may not be. If you're just looking to drive the truck around for errands, and let's say you have somebody who is going to give you the stuff that you're going to pick up anyways, why bother to learn to drive the truck?
Oh.
You see, with Taoism, we don't see defenses of, you should absolutely go out and do this. The real answer in Taoism is that learn to drive the truck if you want to learn to leave the map.
Oh, it's part of the deal. It's part of the agreement is, I mean, you're free to drive the truck. You're free to learn to drive the truck.
Do what you want with the truck, because otherwise what's happening, I'm giving you another map.
Yeah.
A map from a different society, different time, different whatever.
Whatever it happens to be. But if you want to leave the map, if you want to go off-roading or wandering, you have to learn to drive the truck.
Yes, you must learn to drive the truck.
Okay. So
And,
meditation itself doesn't have a value. It's what it can lead to.
Yes. People should learn to do it simply because it allows you access to full human capacity if you pursue it far enough. But the reality is that from a Taoist perspective, it's really only useful if you intend to drive the truck someplace that you would not normally get to.
Wow.
Otherwise, why bother? You know, the fact is that if you are in the truck but chained to the truck, all you did was change your chain. You didn't really change anything else. So you're never going to have the argument of like, oh, you absolutely must do blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what do you intend to do with this newfound truck freedom that you have?
Yeah.
If that is not much else, then the reason that you would do some form of meditation is you feel better. That would be the argument.
Okay.
And that's actually a pretty potent argument all by itself.
Yeah.
And so, you know, humans do a lot in order to just feel better. And meditation will make you feel better. for the most part, for the great majority of people.
Until you get to that point where the map runs out. If you're not ready for the map to run out, then it might not be so comfortable.
It might not be so comfortable. Some people live also in a state of where they've suppressed large parts of their need and past experience.
Yeah.
And meditation can run them smack against that. So.
Oh, you mean it'll reveal things that they've been trying to hide from themselves?
Yeah, because sometimes that hiding is a very thin veneer, and unfortunately, meditation activates natural processes that place you up against that thin veneer. Because the reality is that's the only way you can control the truck, even if you're simply fulfilling the social mind's purposes. So you don't get to drive the truck at all if you have a ton of stuff in front of your truck. We're kind of pushing this metaphor as far as it can go, but you know.
It's good. I like it. Yes. So, given all those different varieties of meditation and the nuances of meditation, if we want to, is there a progression that I can start with? Is there something, a simple method that I can start with to familiarize myself with the mind leading the mind?
Well, you would start off with what I believe every meditation tradition does, which is essentially have you spend some quiet time sitting in nature, dealing with whoever you happen to be. And that's a good general place to start off with. From the Taoist perspective, meditation is a natural system within a human being. It activates something that we call the detachment mechanism. And this is, among esoterics, a lot of what people have with regards, actually I didn't even know this because many years ago I didn't know enough about Buddhism to know the differences in the terminologies. But attachment essentially within Buddhism is emotional value. That's not the reference within Taoism for detachment and attachment. And the funny thing is even classically the words are very similar in meaning. What happens is that we get bound up into our past.
Okay.
And by that I mean a portion of you is caught in Morgan at 13, Morgan at whatever particular age.
Yeah.
However, that event those events in that Morgan will always be there, but it doesn't serve you to have yourself caught up in that time.
I'm using energy that I could be using today.
Right.
Maintaining that sort of shadow.
And we have a natural mechanism for releasing that within us. And
other than just forgetting?
Other than forgetting. Because if you forget it, the resources can still be locked up into that time, regardless of whether or not you've had conscious forgetting of a particular thing.
Okay.
And so that's where you have, you know, the psychological concept of hidden trauma or past this or past that.
Repression.
Yeah. And it's really, it's locked up resources at a particular time that doesn't really serve you to continue to maintain.
Yeah.
And so that's the essential challenge of that. But we naturally can release that.
Okay.
And that's in part what is achieved by meditation. I would say it's its primary focus. But within nature, that state is reproduced usually in periods of where we are in aware waiting states.
Aware waiting.
And so that can be, for example, when you're hunting and you are simply waiting for game. Very common state. You enter into a state that's very similar to meditation. Same thing with fishing. So if you listen to somebody describing the fishing process, why they enjoy it, other things like that, what they're describing is meditation. And you can also see that in certain physical activities, but those are two activities that harken back to our very early Stone Age roots.
Yes.
And so you need, in order to be successful with, let's say, the acquisition of game, you need a period of stillness. And it's a period of stillness that we have been in for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
So the mind takes advantages of that time and releases things. It basically does cleanup work. And that's, I would say, if you're looking at the core of meditation, out of the vast discipline of meditation, it's that cleanup work, that mechanism for cleaning up has to be activated and allowed to occur. And so it creates a greater sense of freedom for the person, reduces their pain and discomfort.
And releases some energy to them.
Yeah, it's a vital, essentially a reset period.
Yeah.
So if you are not looking for doing the more elaborate, deliberate methodologies, you can simply reproduce that primitive methodology, and you could do that by hunting or fishing, or you could do that by simply sitting in the state that you would when you were hunting and fishing without hunting and fishing.
Right.
So and to do that, you just sit quietly and observe nature, and you will reproduce part of that automated state that's already within a human.
It's in us.
So that doesn't require any special effort. So that's usually the direction I send people to in order to work with a particular thing. But
now that's different than scrolling on your social media, right?
no, you have to observe nature. You have to activate effectively the Stone Age self and allow it to do its Stone Age things.
Okay.
And with more elaborate meditation methods, we're looking at more elaborate control of how the mind interacts or deals with the mind. And that's a whole big thing. It can't really be done in a podcast episode.
Okay, okay. Very interesting. So what's the difference between observing nature and, I don't know, reading a book?
Well, it's simple. We were built for one of them.
So reading a book is a later development.
Yeah, it's a later development that occurs. You could argue that it reproduces part of the state, but again, it's an argument. There's no doubt that we spent hundreds of thousands of years occupying the aware, ready state.
Yeah.
And
our very existence is proof of it.
yeah. And if we were unsuccessful at it, we would not be around. Because everything else would go, what is that jittery thing over there? Or they would just sneak by. It's like, they're busy reading.
Yeah.
Just head over here.
See, like you said, the alertness. What was the phrase you used?
Aware.
Yes.
So we are aware, resting, but also ready.
Yes.
And so we need the senses to go to nature in order to activate that internal state, or use formal method, one of the two. But if you're looking you want a natural method that you can just go do that comes out of the human heritage, that's obviously the methodology for doing it. So
Yes. Sometimes you hear meditation characterized as clearing or emptying the mind, and I can see where that would be that would be a misinterpretation of what we're describing here, is that you're not trying to visualize a blank slate, as it were. You're just not imposing something or ingesting something into the mind.
well, you know, the way of dealing with your internal world is not to try to ignore everything in your internal world. So that, I think, modern psychology has laid out pretty clearly. It's like, it can make you functional because you're ignoring it, but that's like ignoring your house could be on fire
And just go.
or filled with sewage or be very nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you can deny that too.
Yeah. And you can go about your business because you're capable of shutting that world off. And that's great. It allows you to go about your business, but have you put your house out of the fire out at your house?
Yeah.
Have you cleaned the sewage out?
Yeah.
Or have you walked in and enjoyed that pleasant plant-filled environment?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's you always have to keep in mind that the core experience of Taoism that Taoism advocates is that you're a human being here to participate in your humanness. And there are ways that works and ways that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And in general, things that steer you away from participating in your humanness are not useful because effectively you're not participating in who you are. And so at the core of Taoism, there is a trust in humanness. Not setting out to run from humanness, not setting out to deny humanness. Does humanness need some control? Yeah, I mean, you can't just run amok, because I mean, the ultimate control for humanness is nature. It just kills you if you're too far off of your place you should be. So,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you can go do anything you want, but the game can also do anything it wants.
That's right.
Everything else around you can do anything it wants. And that very quickly leads to something being dead. And if you want to participate in your humanness, you know, the death experience is one part of that, but
It's also the last one.
yeah, it's the end part of that particular experience. Now, so anytime you see an imposition on humanness, where you have an outside thing being placed in to deny the human nature, it's not that it's never done, it's that one should be cautious whenever you see that being advocated, even within Taoism, because it can be easy to over-advocate it, where suddenly something that was meant to be a very controlled practice goes bonkers in the population, and it's a matter like, we should have approached this with a bit more caution when we were setting out to do it, because
some solution that was addressing a certain problem is now this generic application that,
yeah, you know, it exceeds its bounds and it becomes ideological, where it has no basis in reality.
Right.
But if you want to look at religious differences among different meditative systems, if your meditation is a flight from yourself, then you're really not doing Taoist meditation, because you're not running from yourself. There are times where you need a break from yourself, because, you know, to put it frankly, yourself can be an asshole. And you're just like, okay, asshole, I'm done with dealing with you right now. And your asshole's like, well, blah, blah, blah. It's like, whoop, okay. I had to turn that off for a little bit. So I'm not saying you're nonstop immersed in your own personal assholeness, but if the entire solution set is
to turn yourself off, to avoid yourself, then
that certainly exists among religious meditation. However, it is not favored within Taoism, because you're denying your human experience. And again, that's supposed to be a desirable state for humans. If it's not, that's a whole collection of other things that open up that cage of worms. Do worms really come in a can? I think cage is probably better off. Basin
of worms.
Bag of worms.
You let the worms out of the bag.
Yeah.
All right. Mixed metaphors.
You know, and
Master Malaprop.
if we are really looking at, well, what does it function and why should it be doing those things? It should actually move you closer to human experience rather than farther away from human experience.
And that's where we get mind addressing the mind, because it's what is essentially your human experience, not the outside world.
I'm not even going to give that a full yes-ish. It's kind of a yeesh. So,
well, I try.
Yeah. Well, let's stretch it on out here.
Well, the point of learning for you to find a place where you can examine yourself is to make yourself, or to bring yourself to your humanness, to acknowledge and really sort of introduce yourself to yourself, because we live a life of a lot of things being told to us, and instructions informing us that we should be this and that, where if we sit in nature or we do one of the more prescribed methods, we find ourselves without that, and we start examining that, and that is essentially our lives. And so, I mean, that seems like a worthy enterprise to get to know yourself, basically.
Yes. I mean, if you're asking, well, what is the goal of human experience, that I think falls easily to within most people's definition of what a goal of human experience would be, to have a measure of self-knowledge. And I don't think you'll find a lot of disagreement with that. The thing about meditation as a discipline is a wide collection of tools and systems. Some are better at the beginning and some are better later on, because you have different skill sets you're dealing with. And it boils back down to that truck metaphor. It's like, what are you going to do with that truck?
Yeah.
Is it better to have the ability to drive the truck and then just choose to drive it in the same places that you're handed? Or is it better to go off-road? Well, the thing is that, in part, you don't know what you're going to do with the truck until you get in it.
Oh!
And then perhaps you get seized by that impulse where you go.
But you wouldn't even have that option if you didn't learn how to drive the truck.
Yeah. And so, what I tell people with regards to such things is that you may not understand the word meditation.
Yes.
And you may not, for example, for some people, this will be a revolution in thought about what meditation is. And depending on if they have prior experience, how their prior experience was set up.
Right.
And for some people, it'll be a matter of sitting back and going, was I actually rejecting my own humanness through this meditative methodology I was following? And the answer is, that could entirely be the case. I mean, look at the spiritual system you're coming out of and see how they treat the human process, whether it's admired or considered to be a goal, or whether it's something to overcome.
Right.
And or to be cast aside. And so that can create conflict for people. But despite all of that, there is an underlying impulse within a human that recognizes human experience. And if a person is drawn to it, then they should pursue it, even if it causes them trouble. And by that, it could be they have a ton of things locked up in their past, and it's going to be trouble to deal with them.
Yeah.
And you have a choice to run. It is running, no doubt about it. You have a choice to do that or not do that. But I'm not casting aspersions upon the process of running. You stop running when you're ready to stop running.
Yeah, sometimes you need to run.
And especially if you're bound up still in those events, But somewhere along an impulse comes and your underlying intuitive self goes, you really should go do this. That's the time to go and do it. There doesn't need to be an elaborate sales pitch on my part to learn to meditate. There doesn't need to be really even much confirmation other than saying, if you have the impulse, you should definitely go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And the simple methods are functional methods, especially for the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't want to sit back and go, well, I want to pursue this meditative talent over here so that I can gain the ability to penetrate time, let's say.
Okay.
Maybe you should deal with your 13-year-old self first before you set out to do something like that.
Definitely.
And
because you're going to need all the resources that you can muster. And, you know, that's a healthy thing to do, is to deal with.
Well, you know, part of my experience of having done this for decades is that I do get a steady flow of people, which are basically like, I've been doing this for X number of years, I've made these gains here, now I'm stuck. I can tell you almost always it boils down to like a handful of things. And it's unmet basic need, or something stuck in the person's past.
Yeah.
Or they simply, despite their outward statement, they don't actually want that thing.
Oh, yes, of course.
And because I'm sure that is not a unique experience for many people, where we voice in our external self, well, I absolutely want to blah, blah, blah. But you don't absolutely want the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, if you sit down in that quiet time, waiting for the rabbit or the deer to come by.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps to give it a treat. Perhaps to eat it as a treat. Perhaps to sit back, have a cup of tea. Who knows why you're there.
Yeah.
But in that quiet time, that's the opportunity for you to sit back and go, well, you know, I don't actually think I want to do that. And, or I want to do that, but I'm afraid of it.
Yeah.
And people, I think in general, we don't realize that sometimes what we would regard as being, from the social perspective, as being a small fragment of emotion that says, I'm afraid of this, or I don't want to do this, or I would rather my life went in this direction. That's enough to derail major things later on. And so you can tell, like, after decades of discipline, you sit back and say, the problem is that I'm 90% there, but I can't get the last 10%. And it's a matter, that's all you need. I mean, if you have 90% of a car engine, does it run?
That's right.
If you have 99% of a car engine, does it run? Maybe.
Probably.
You might be able to get it to squeak for a little while. But processes like that were meant to run with 100% of the car engine.
I see. Yeah.
They're certainly not going to run with 90% of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably not even 95%. And then you get the last percent or two, and you might be able to squeak that out. But the reality is that, you know, sometimes people, well, that sounds really complex. It's like, well, one, you don't have to do those things. And two, can your heart beat if it only has 90% of the heart? Can it beat if we were to only cut off 5% of your heart? And we have plenty of complex systems, biological and otherwise, which simply don't function at all if we remove a very small part of that system.
Yeah.
It exists all throughout our biology. It exists with machines. And a lot of times I use mechanical references for people because of familiarity. They can sit back and go, well, obviously, if I would remove this much of the machine, it would stop being functional.
Yeah.
But, you know, the reference to working with the heart, for example, is like, yeah, you really can't cut off that much of that and still have it work.
Yeah.
Now your liver, you could easily cut off that much. So, So, you know, we start bumping into stuff there.
But what we get from that is that we can use the systems that are proven, or that are excuse me, that are part of our anatomy, as it were, spiritual anatomy, or, you know, historical anatomy, and use, instead of reinventing the wheel, we use the wheel that we already have, and our very existence is proof that our ancestors were capable of it, and so we should be capable of it.
You know, that's one of the reasons that Taoists have a knowledge of history, is that it consistently provides us with a reference that we can look at. And so we have to, the current timeline for the emergence of Homo sapiens as a Homo sapien species that we would recognize is somewhere around 300,000 years ago. And so if we were to roll that time, or our discovery, back just a few decades, it was 200,000 years ago. And even now it's starting to creep the 300,000 years to an even earlier time. You probably with a lot of intermixing with other human species.
Right.
But we've been around for a while, and the great bulk of our history is in the Stone Age. We spent most of our time there. Our systems are built for that.
Yes, that's where we developed, that's where we became human, and that's where we learned the tools and designed the tools that got us this far.
Yes, and you could always question as whether or not that was useful, but and that is a question.